Hi, today's Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. On the last Friday, which is October 31st, that's the last day of October. I took the Azure 104. There's Azure, there's the Microsoft Cloud's associate, administrative, associative, or associate certification. I got my understanding of the concepts used in the Azure was very weak, but I scored 648, which is not bad. But basically, I missed a lot of questions, and one of them was about imaging, right? Disk imaging and cloning. So let's find out what disk image is all about. In old days, when we try to install bootleg software or any legitimate software, either we purchase the disk and install the programs, and we click on the exe file, and then it bootstrap, it self installs all the necessary components to have the application installed on your computer. Well, sometimes they give you a disk image copy, right, and ask you to install it. Basically, my experience was that it was very difficult to extract the files inside or install the application using the disk image file. So let's find out what the disk image is all about. We know that cloning just clones every stuff in your hard drive, thumb drive, byte by byte, right? Byte by byte, bit by bit, or byte by byte. This article was generated by Gemini, the Google AI. I think OpenAI will lose to Google Gemini because, Gemini is naturally integrated into the Google. So it's very powerful, and that's why we should buy Google, right, instead of OpenAI stocks. A disk image is a single computer file that contains a complete copy of a storage device's data and a file structure, like a hard drive, SSD, CD, or USB drive. It preserves all data, including the operating system, applications, and files, and is used for backups, software distribution, and creating virtual drives. Common disk image file formats include .iso, .dmg, and .img. What a disk image contains, all data, includes every file and folder on the original disk. Structural information contains all the low-level data, such as boot sectors and file system structures that allows the disk to be bootable or function correctly, right? Bootable is a bootable disk. Configuration settings. Copies of the operating system, applications, and their settings. How disk images are used. Backup and recovery. Software installation. Virtual machines, emulation. Backup and recovery provides a way to create a full backup of a drive which can be used to restore it to a previous state. For example, after system failure or malware infection, or the famous ransomware hijacking. Software installation, often used by distributed software, like when you download an application installer file. Virtual machines, right? I've downloaded an application installer file, often used to distribute software, like when you download an application installer file. Virtual machines, disk images can be used as virtual hard drives for virtual machines allowing you to run an operating system inside another one. Virtual machine. Because Azure is all about virtual machines, so let me go over this section one more time. Virtual machines. Disk images can be used as virtual hard drives for virtual machines, allowing you to run an operating system inside another one. Virtual machines basically has its own like a Windows server or Linux server, like Ubuntu or Mac OS, that's activated together with the virtual machines that you are trying to configure. It is called IaaS or PaaS, right? But sometimes there gotta be some occasion where you want to have a virtual hard disk, right? And have the operating software run again inside or on the already installed Ubuntu or Windows server, right? Virtual machines. Disk images can be used as virtual hard drives for virtual machines, allowing you to run an operating system inside another one. Emulation. .iso files are used in emulators to replicate the content of an optical disc, such as CD or DVD, for games or other software. So ISO files are used in emulators to replicate the content of an optical disc, such as CD or DVD, for games or other software. Key characteristics: single file. The entire contents of drive are contained within a single file. Exact copy. A disk image is an exact bit-for-bit copy of the source drive, including all its data and metadata. Compression. Modern disk images often use compression to reduce file size. Encrypted. Some disk images can be encrypted to protect the sensitive data they contain. Encrypted, compressed, exact copy, bit for bit, right? That's good expression, bit by bit or bit for bit. Bit for bit, apple to apple, right? Lemon to lemon, apple to lemon, right? Exact copy, single file. So it's a single file, exact copy, compressed and encrypted. Well, that's it. Thanks for listening and have a great Wednesday. But let me go over the disk image one more time. Yeah, here's a good primer, right? Let's continue to read. Definition. What is a disk image? Nick Barney, technology writer, Gary Krantz, published April 14th, 2025. Disk images are made of the contents of various types of computer storage media. A disk image is a compressed file that contains a copy of the entire contents of a computer's hard drive or other storage media such as optical device disks or solid-state drives. The disk image represents the content exactly as it is on the original storage device, including both data and structure information. Disk image is a byte-by-byte, sector-by-sector copy of the content on the original source drive. These images provide a single reference of a machine configured for an organization's computing environment. How does a disk image work, right? A disk image includes files and file folders, boot files, directories, file allocation tables, operating system OS attributes, slack space, and unused storage capacity. There are several expressions that we need to remember, such as boot files and slack space, right? Slack space. Boot files and slack spaces. Slack space. Disk imaging software makes an image of a completely configured system. Because of its large size, a disk image file is compressed and stored on a secondary storage device or in cloud storage. Hard drive disk images can be saved as a virtual hard disk. A disk image provides a single consistent source for all computers in a group or organization on which the information on it is installed. It also can be mounted It also can be mounted so that users can view it on their desktop as though it were an external drive. That's good. It also can be mounted so that users can view it on their desktop as though it were an external drive. Authorized users have access to all file folders within a mounted disk image. That's good, right? Mounted disk image. For enhanced security, contents of disk image file can be encrypted and password protected, much like any other computer system drive or device. There are many file formats used for disk images, which are identified by specific three-letter file extensions, ISO, DMG, and IMG. How are disk images used? Disk images serve a variety of use cases, including the following: computer forensics, copying CDs and DVDs, creating portable versions of a user's system, data protection. Yeah, when I just try to copy CDs or DVDs in a bootleg style, many programs like a Nero 5, they just created image files, right? And I couldn't open any installed or copy the application or music onto another computer because I didn't know how to use ISO files back then. Creating portable versions of a user system, data protection, disaster recovery, disk cloning or ghost imaging, distribution of applications and OSES, ghost, right? We use the ghost imaging in the PC bunks or cyber cafe. Distribution of applications and OSES, right? OSES. Distribution of applications. Sometimes when you try to install an application, the CD is given to you, or you download ISO image from the internet, and you need to activate the files. It's just a single compressed file, so instead of uncompressed several files, it's quite handy to download and boot from the file. Disk cloning and ghost imaging, distribution of applications and OSes, large-scale OS deployment and system migration, system backup. What kinds of disks are included in a disk image? Several types of storage media can be converted into disk images. Hard disk drives, solid-state drives, external hard drives, USB flash drives, CDs, DVDs, and Blu-ray discs, network-attached storage disks, NAS, right? In Korea, we just use the word NAS, but actually Americans pronounce it NAS, network attached storage disks, RAID volumes with the servers, RAID 5, 6, RAID 0, virtual machine VM disks, virtual machine disk, virtual hard drives, virtual machine disks. Is a disk image the same thing as an ISO file? Disk Images, an international organization for standardization ISO files, are similar but have different origins. The disk image file format IMG or IMG originated to replicate images on floppy disks. Image files are still in use, but they are often converted to the ISO format to archive the entire contents of optical media as a single file. IMG disk image files are still in use, but they are often converted to the ISO format to archive the entire contents of optical media as a single file. So IMG files are converted to ISO files. ISO is the generally accepted format for disk images and is recognized by most OSs, which typically include native tools for extracting and reading disk image files in ISO format. Windows on your laptop can extract ISO file in your computer and run an application or install an application because the OS has a native tools, right? ISO is the generally accepted format for disk images and is recognized by most OSs, which typically include native tools for extracting and reading disk image files in ISO format. ISO files make it easier to distribute software for installation through the internet. ISO files make it easier to distribute software for installation through the internet because it's just a single compressed short file. In an uncompressed form, there's no discernible difference between an EMG and ISO disk image file. Compressing a disk image conserves storage, but some devices might not be able to read the image. It's possible to convert IMG files to the ISO format and vice versa using special file conversion software. Special file conversion software, right? It's vice versa. But uncompressed format, there's no discernible difference between an IMG and ISO disk image file. Since it represents the contents of physical drive, a disk image can be safely deleted after its associated application is successfully installed. How are disk images mounted? In Microsoft Windows, hard images are mounted and unmounted with a File Explorer tool or Disk Image Tools tab on the Windows ribbon. For systems running Mac OS, programs are distributed in the Apple Disk Image format, identified as DMG files. Right, Apple Disk Image format. Variants of the open source Linux file system natively support mounting disk images as virtual disks. For systems running Mac OS, programs are distributed in the Apple Disk Image format, identified as DMG files. Variants of the open source Linux file system natively support mounting disk images as virtual disks. Right, as virtual disks. Disk image versus disk clone versus golden image. A disk image, disk clone, and golden image have similarities in that each produces a replica of all the contents of a drive. Yeah, I'm confused. However, there are some differences, okay? A disk image is compressed copy of a prepared application environment that allows a granular data restore to occur. Multiple images can be stored per disk and incrementally updated. Okay, a disk image is compressed copy of a prepared application environment that allows a granular data restore to occur. Multiple images can be stored per disk and incrementally updated. A disk clone is an uncompressed copy of a drive that can be immediately used in a production environment to replace a failing HDD. Cloning is faster than creating a disk image, but only one clone per disk, right? Several disk images per disk, but only one clone per disk can be stored and uncompressed, and new data can be added to a clone. It's more like a bit by bit or bit for bit copy. A golden image is a snapshot of a configured disk, server, system, or VM that is used to, here VM means a virtual machine, that is used to deploy new instances on a network. Master image or clone image are synonymous terms with golden image, right? Clone image, master image, clone image, golden image. So golden image is just a snapshot, right, of a configured disk, server, system, or virtual machine. So gold image, a disk clone, a disk image. You can have several disk images, multiple images on a single disk, and you can store or revert to the previous versions using the granular approach. Granularly stored, the differential increments are stored later on so that you could select the revert point, right? Restoration point, data restore. So that's disk image, disk clone, golden image. Large files are hard to restore. The size of disk image can affect the complexity of restoration. Larger disk images that exceed several terabytes can present longer processing times, increased storage requirements, and potential hardware limitations. Other important factors that can slow down restoration include the following: read and write speeds. HDDs and some external drives might experience slow transfer rates when restoring large files, whereas SSDs generally offer faster performance. Partition complexity. Multiple partitions or complex file system structures might require specialized software to ensure proper allocation and formatting. Partition complexity. It's all about restoration, not copying, right? Partition complexity. Multiple partitions or complex file system structures might require specialized software to ensure proper allocation and formatting. Storage capacity. The destination disk must have as much storage space as the backup disk image, or else restoration is not possible. Storage capacity, optical media constraints. ISO images of large DVDs or Blu-ray discs might require multi-disc spanning or specialized software to restore successfully. Disk images are structured with multiple disk partitions, right? Volume, the entire stuff is called volume. Disk partitions, disk partition, disk partition, disk partition. Stripe unit, right? Oh, come on, man. I was at the tech target, right? Sounds like a good website to reference. Disk imaging pros and cons. Having an available reference machine image makes it easier for organizations to upgrade their computer environment. All computing devices that have had the disk image installed will have uniform configuration settings and programs, saving time when upgrading computers or peripheral components. All computing devices that have had the disk image installed will have uniform configuration settings and programs, saving time when upgrading computers and peripheral components. On the other hand, a disk image represents a snapshot of a device at a given point in time. At a given point in time, right? At a given point in time. If new machines are added to the environment after disk image is made, those newer devices might not receive security patches or software updates, delaying their provisioning for production environments. On the other hand, a disk image represents a snapshot of a drive at a given point in time. If new machines are added to the environment after disk image is made, those newer devices might not receive security patches or software updates, delaying their provisioning for production environments. Disk images are important for restoring files. Learn what you need to about snapshots and backup. Well, that's it. But before I go, I would like to go over what I marked down to be memorized. A given point in time, a given point in time, a given point in time. Boot files, slack space, mounted disk image, slack space, given point in time, boot files, bit by bit, bit for bit, right? That's it. Thanks for listening. Have a great Wednesday. Bye bye.